this with everybody. Just go ahead and you guys talk about your journey with dogs and your lifelong journey, and then how'd you come about your passion and how you ended up with the program you have now.
Well, lifelong, of course, we both had dogs most of our life. I used to train horses for a living, so always had a cattle dog, and so then when the market crashed in 2008, kind of went away from the horse stuff. Then went to work at Mercedes Benz, and actually still have my last cattle dog. He's 13 and still acts like a puppy. Is an Australian Shepherd. So, but with all the dog hair in the house, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So then he got put outside, which he didn't mind. He liked it outside. She had a German Shepherd. All the hair in the house, they had to go. So then for 2 years, she wanted a dog in the house. I was like, absolutely not. No, we're not doing it. Well, I finally came up with criteria for us to have a dog in the house, thinking it didn't exist. In 2 days, she not only had found dogs with the criteria, but had actually found some dogs. And I said, okay, but if they have that one, because that other one's ugly. That one's pretty. Like, he's gorgeous. And so she called about him, and they had already sold him or something. And then the lady ended up calling back like an hour later or something. And the people that had wanted him backed out. So, okay, fine. Tell her I'll come get him in the morning. So we drove 5-6 hours to go pick him up, brought him back. And he was baby Cass, which is our miniature, black miniature. So then from there we went and got a female. And then she wanted a giant. I didn't particularly, it didn't matter to me. When we got the giants, that's when I guess things changed. I told her when we first had, she wanted a giant. It was our house isn't big enough. We have to have a bigger house. When we get a bigger house, we can get a giant. Okay, well, we bought a bigger house. So a couple weeks later, she's like, "Here's the dog." Okay, let's go look. We went and looked, brought her home. Then we bought a male. And it was from there, our son went to dog training school, and I usually don't try to do anything halfway. So we got into it pretty quickly and pretty big. Our pepper salt male dog is currently the only IGP-1 dog in the country as a salt and pepper. Our black male dog is the 2023 Czech Republic national champion. He has his BH, and he's going to trial for his IGP-1 later this year. On schedule to be the first weekend of April. Well, we may end up having to push that back. So, we also have a female named Zumba. She's the 2022 German tracking national champion. She is one phenomenal dog. She's won all the accolades you could possibly win. Uh, I'm not going to say she's the best female in the United States, but her record says she is by what she's done and by what her puppies have done. She's one of only two IGP3 in the United States, females, giant schnauzers, of course. I don't always qualify it by saying giant schnauzer, but everybody should know that's all we have. So, and then we're here talking to you. So it's been a wonderful path.
That's interesting. That's an interesting path. How has the horse world correlated to your experiences with the dogs now?
A lot of it transfers. Like it's really cool how much actually transfers, because there's a lot of the same concepts. You just kind of apply them in a little bit different way. Instead of a bit, it's a lure. So I guess instead of, honestly, with horses, it's more force than it is with a dog. I mean, of course, as a horse trainer, we don't say that it's force, but it is. If I'm sticking a spur in your side to get you to do something, then I'm forcing you to do it. So, but with the dogs, it's a lot more lure and they learn. So, but it's translated a lot.
Same with, I'm sure, like looking at conformation and just the structure of the animal, right?
It is. Of course, every breed of horse is built a little different to do what God intended for them to do. The same as a dog. They're all built a little different to do what God intended. Lots of times we try to change that because they're not pretty enough for us. So we try to change it and take it from what it was intended to be and create it to be something else. So we kind of like to take it more of in Germany, they started out with a type and they still have that type. Here, we've kind of transitioned a little bit. So, because we want more pretty dog. We're more concerned about pretty. And we're more concerned about pretty and them being people. Rather than over there, they're worried about doing a job and them being a dog. So, and don't get me wrong, we love our dogs. A lot of them live in the house and are treated very well. But we try to still treat them like dogs. That's what they were intended to be.
So going back to the beginning, when you got, was it a miniature schnauzer? Was
Yes,
that
sir.
talk about the difference in personality and right away that you noticed from the miniature from the giant?
So the miniature schnauzer, we got lucky with our miniature schnauzer and with our first giant schnauzer. They learned really quick and they didn't tear up anything, and they were the complete opposite of what you would think when you Google them, which is probably how we got so many, because they tricked us. Carolina Grace, she was our first giant, and if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see a lot of stuff about her. A lot of their personalities are the same. They have the same traits, the same prey drive, the same, all of that. Then we have another giant, Kaya. She's crazy. She's just crazy. I mean, to put it very simple, she is one of those, she has to be worked. Something has to be done with her every day. Or she's not going to be a good dog. Caroline and Grace, don't matter. She can lay around. She can run around. She's going to adapt. Dogs are dogs. You know, you will see a lot of people that say giants are completely different than any other dog breed. I don't necessarily believe that. They're dogs. They are a working breed, most of them, but they're still dogs, and they're going to adapt. We have, how many giants we have?
12 here.
So we have 12 that live with us. Not one of them act like the others. They all have different personalities and different needs and different wants. And I'll be the first one to tell you that I probably spoil them way more than anybody should, which does affect a lot of what they should be doing. Like when he takes them to trial, I'm not allowed to be around. I have to stay in the car because they want to be with mom and they want to be held and petted and spoiled. So they're going to come to me. So I'm not allowed to be out and about when they're
And
there.
it's amazing how the dogs, I tell everybody, they love her more than they do me, but they respect me more than they do her. When I say it, they know I mean it. When she says it, sometimes she might mean it, sometimes not so much, but they know at the end of it, they're still getting loved on. So, but all of the dogs, like she said, have their different personalities. And even Cass, like, he'll lay here and sleep all day. He don't need nothing, but if there's something for him to go after, like, he has tremendous prey drive, but he doesn't care to use it. I mean, if something's there, he ain't going to look for nothing. The Giants, Drake is a phenomenal dog, and people are so amazed. Like, Drake is extremely confident. You take him anywhere, he acts like he's been there 100 times already. He's never in a new place. The first time I took him to our vet, he laid down in the floor, and I mean sprawled out in the floor. They came out, and he was right in the path, and that's been our vet for many years. I'm like, just walk over him. So they just step over him, and he just kind of looked up at them, and nothing. Dogs, you know how when you go to the vet, dogs are acting crazy. He just looked up at them, and when he cocked his head, they changed their attitude. He didn't have to say, do anything. And people like, oh my God, he's such a great dog. He has such great temperament. Like, is he a service dog, or is he this? Is he that? No. And I usually, you know, when people start to, I let them talk for a minute, because I definitely want them to be confident that he is what he's showing. And I said, no, he bites people for a living. Like, that's what he does. No way. So usually I have to show them a video or show them a picture of him doing it. They're like, wow. And we think that that's what you should raise, is dogs that can go anywhere and act accordingly. And then when they're called on or needed, then they'll react to your command or to the situation in whatever means necessary. So, but between the littles, we have a little that's a devil, and if she was a big one, we would absolutely rule the world.
She's 8 pounds, and she is the meanest thing on the property.
She's not scared of the devil himself. She will get right up in any of the first time Drake's 106 pounds. The first time she met him, she got right in his face barking at him, and him just looking like, what are you gonna do? But she didn't back down. So, you know, their temperaments are, Cass, my wife's dog, used to, when he would go to town, if you didn't pet him, if everybody that walked by him didn't pet him, he was offended. Now, this one, if you take her to town and somebody tried to pet her, they might have to go to the doctor. Like she ain't nice. But as you see, she's actually glaring at me because she knows I'm talking about her. So, and the Giants though, they go regularly places, and every one of them we have is laid back, so chill. They can turn it up, all of them, but they're really chill. And our salt and pepper male lives with our son in Valparaiso, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
He trains at Foundation Canine.
Mm-hmm.
And just in case my son watches this, I want to say he has done an absolutely phenomenal job with that dog. He's planning on going for his IGP2 in June. So we're very proud of him and the dog. So.
That's awesome. How old is your son? If you know?
He's 19.
19.
Holy crap, that is awesome. I'm jealous because I just wish I was honed in this passion, in this hobby when I was younger. I mean, I always had a love and a passion and a deeper like drive to learn about dogs and be around them, but life just takes you in different directions. So that's cool that he's doing that. Good for him.
He loves it.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I know this is a dog show, but I'm going to tell you about a little bit about my son. He's not really a books person. School's not his thing. So we were actually coming back from working some dogs, and my wife asked, "What about sending him to dog training school? Think he'd like it?" And we homeschooled, so they graduated at 15, 16. So we had to sign all kind of stuff for the Tom Rose School to take him, release them from liability. And the lady said something about him being struggling.
So when Cole went to school, he had just turned 17, and he went to school in Missouri. And we went up there, and she said, "Don't be surprised if he struggles or if he doesn't finish, where you think he should be, because he's young and he has a giant Schnauzer and everybody else had Malinois and German Shepherds." And all I told her was, I'm not worried about where he's going to end up. He knows our expectations and he's never not met them. He'll be fine. He finished early and he finished at the top of his class. So, and we dropped him off at 17 and we came back to Alabama, and he lived up there and did it by himself. So
done a great job. And then, of course, he talked to us about what job to take. He had offers a lot of places. Decided on the one in Valparaiso. Mom wasn't very happy about that. That's
11 hours away.
Yeah, 11, 12 hours away. So not very happy about that. But we went up after he had been there a couple months. And I tell people that one of the biggest compliments that I've ever received was his boss. We were leaving, having dinner. He said, one thing I have to say is your son's not of this generation. He's different. He has a tremendous work ethic, and he's just different. And that's that's huge, because we're very proud of, like I said, of both of them.
So often we get dogs and we want to push them to do something that they're just not going to do. And we want them to be a social dog. We want to take them places. We want to do things with them. This little girl right here, she doesn't want to go anywhere. She doesn't want people around her. Now, could I take her? Yes. And do I have to sometimes? Yeah. But that's not where she's comfortable. That's not where she thrives. And I think too often people push their dog in an area where it's not safe for them. If she was a big dog and acted like she does in public, they would take her from us. I mean, because she hates everybody. She doesn't want anybody coming to her, nothing. If she was 100 pounds instead of 8 pounds, that's not safe for anyone. Not safe for the dog or people. And I think too often people get the dogs, whether they get them as puppies or whether they adopt them. And they don't take the time to get to know the dog and figure out what works. You can pretty much train them to do anything, but you have to figure out what works for them. And if they don't have the confidence to go in public and to do that, and it's scary, they're going to react that way. And if you're not equipped to handle 100-pound dog reacting in a negative way, they don't need to go in public. You need to figure something out. And I think that's a lot of the issues sometimes is people just assume dogs want to be in public. Dogs don't always want to be in public. They want to be home or somewhere away from people.
I don't think it's necessarily they assume they want to be in public. It's they don't care what they want, and they want them in public. And like things, I typically carry 3 dogs with me at a time when I go to the training field, and all 3 of them have to be trained different. Even though they're training in the exact same thing, all 3 of them have to train different because that's where they thrive. That's what benefits them. To the point of the Schnauzers and them being, people talk about how they're this, they're all this. Caroline Grace is laying under the table right here with us, and as long as we sit here, she'll lay there. If we stayed in bed all weekend, the only time she'd get up is when she had to go to the bathroom. Now, if we wanted to go run 20 miles, which believe me, I'm not finna run 20 miles, she'd go. Whatever she just wants to be. Now, she was talking about Kaya earlier. Kaya has to go do something every day. Kaya will go absolutely stir crazy. People talk about the genetics of a dog, and lots of times I think we talk about genetics, and we're talking about pedigrees, not the genetics, because most of Kaya's pedigree, she shouldn't be like she is, but she is a working dog through and through. We have dogs that are highly bred to be working dogs that do have the genetics. We have them that aren't quite bred that way that have the genetics. It's like you can have 2 from the same litter. One of them's great, and the other one can't even walk out the kennel without falling down. So, but they have the same pedigrees. They don't have the same genetics. And I think we interchange that all too often. We had a lady that brought a dog here that was a doodle, and that dog bit me 8 times before she even left. And
That's the meanest dog I've ever seen in my life.
yes. And now, like, he stayed here 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed here 2 months, and now he's a house pet. I think a lot of not all, but a lot of the dog aggression, people aggression is man-made. People don't know how to handle the dog, and they're reinforcing the wrong thing. Like, when a dog is scared and you're consoling him, you're teaching him to be scared. When he's wanting to attack and he's growling and you're trying to calm him down by petting him, that's what we do in IGP to get them to do it. So you're telling her to do it and then wondering why he don't quit. Well, he's not quitting because you keep rewarding him. Why would he quit? So many of the things that are man-made, and dogs get such bad raps. I love, there's a dog trainer, and I really don't even know where he's at. Tom, I can't even remember his last name now. But he says there's no bad dogs. I don't 100% agree that there's no bad dogs, because some of them come with a loose wire. But 95%, maybe more, of issues are man-made at some point. So we have one here now that was honestly scheduled to be put down because of behavior. He bit the owner. Nobody could take him because the rescue can't take a dog that has a bite history. The gentleman showed me where the dog bit him. I said, this dog's 120 pounds. He's a giant Schnauzer. He's 120 pounds. I said, if my male dog would have bit you like that, he would have took your arm off. If he would have bit you like you say, he would have took your arm off. There was no sign. But this dog now, at Christmas, he played with my 3-year-old grandson. Like, he's quite a bit different than he was. And this was a dog that was going to be put to sleep. And you're going to put him to sleep because people don't know or understand how to handle a dog.
Well, that's not saying that. So he's talking about Bentley. And Bentley is our rescue. And my husband said that we would take him, but once we fixed him, he had to find a new home. Well, Bentley's not going to a new home. This is Bentley's home. He's my little baby. He's my little 126-pound baby.
He ain't little nothing.
But Bentley didn't come without issues. It took a lot to earn his trust. There were times when I would sit by the kennel and he would act like a rabid maniac in that kennel. It took time to earn his trust, for him to understand that we weren't going anywhere. And if you want to act like a fool, that's all right, but you're still going to have to deal. And I think that's a lot. And his previous owners, I think they very much loved him. I just think that he was scary and he's big, and they did not know how to handle scary and big. And once you're scared of something like that, you're not going to fix it because you're scared. And he was scary when he acted that way. He wasn't, he didn't look like a little puppy. He did the teeth thing and the big eyes and the drooling, all of it. But it was just because he was scared. He didn't trust anybody. But he's really, he's a sweet boy, and
he definitely is.
He's not going anywhere. He's here.
So guess what? We're not going to have anymore. Another rescue.
Well, I was scrolling. It happened because I was scrolling through the Facebook Schnauzer pages, and the lady had reached out asking if anybody could take him or if they knew of anybody. And people are so quick to use the word aggression, I think, in the wrong sense. But I'm a word person, and I think a lot of people use words in the wrong way. But she said he was aggressive, and he needed to go. A bunch of the comments underneath that post were that he needed to be euthanized, that you could not fix him.
He was broken. And she posted a picture, and I have no idea why, but I was like, we need him. And I told him, and my husband said, no, we do not need him. We don't need him. We can't get papers on them, and we can't do anything. And I was like, if we don't get him, he'll be dead, and he doesn't need to be dead, so we need to get him. And so he drove to Florida and picked him up, and now Bentley remains here.
spoiled, rotten. So, but I think that's another one of those, not taking the time to understand the individual dog. They're just as unique as people. You know, I have a sister and we're night and day. Every dog we have is different from the other. We have a lot of them. So I think just people need to take time to learn their dog.
Absolutely. And in ways that are more than just the day-to-day. They need to understand their thinking. We had a pit bull here that had been poisoned when he was a puppy and had been through a lot of stuff. The owner spent a tremendous amount of money to keep him alive. And like, he just wouldn't open up, be a dog. He really wouldn't. And one night my wife got in the kennel with him and sit down, and like they connected. She's like, we have a, what do you call that thing? Fermi? Mm-hmm. And vacuumed him. And I'm like, there's no way you're fixing to do that. He's going to go ballistic. No, she turned it on high and just vacuumed him his whole body. And from that point on, he was different. And my wife's great at figuring out the way they think. And like with him, he really did, like, he wouldn't even take food from me. After that connection, then he was a totally different dog. He took food. He progressed quickly. And then the owners coming at him, and when we were with him, he did great. When they took him home, they're like, he won't have anything to do with us. He won't eat it. He won't take food from our hand, nothing. I said, I really hate to tell you this. It's because he don't trust you. I said, you have to think, while he was going through all that trauma, everything that he was given had medicine in it. Every time somebody come, they petted him and give him a shot. So you have to think about that. There's got to be a lot more, I'm going to love you, and then I want you to get comfortable. Then when you do, then we can progress, because now you trust me. And he was a phenomenal. It was a phenomenal change instantly when my wife went in there with him and worked with him for 10 minutes. And then once they started doing we're not going to do anything but love you for a few days. And once they did that, like, they couldn't believe the change. It was amazing. And I think that's one thing that we don't do. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of it, because I want them to progress, because I want to meet a deadline. Mm. Like, I'm going to go to this trial, so I have to be ready. So I'm sometimes very guilty of not giving the love and making the bond to start with to get there. And of course, my loving wife tells me that. Sometimes even in a nice way.
So talk about the progression of getting your first giant Schnauzer or two to going head first into the IGP. What?
Yeah, it was 0 to 100.
Yeah, how was that progression? Yeah, tell me.
So we got when we were going to get our first one, we had never seen a giant Schnauzer in person. So I contacted the breeder and I was like, look, I'm not going to commit to buying one. I've never seen one. Can we come visit? And she was like, absolutely you can. Okay. And they didn't have puppies yet. It was just her grown dogs. And we went up there and I fell in love with the male dog. He was massive and he was the sweetest thing. I was like, okay, I want one. And that's when we waited for Caroline Grace. And then we kind of thought about it when we got her, but it was when our son went to school and he was doing that type of work with our second giant Schnauzer with our male dog. Because we talked about that the Schnauzers are different. Carolina Grace, the Gandhi of all Schnauzers. Like, I'm convinced she only chewed on her toys. She was a dream to potty train. She was amazing. Copper, who lives with our son and went to school with our son, if he wouldn't have went to school with our son, I don't know which one of us would have made it out alive, but one of us wasn't coming out of making it out of puppy stage. He ate my whole house. He tried to tear the vinyl siding off the house. He was a lot. But our son is really what got us towards that direction with the Giants, doing that type of work, and he liked it, and my husband decided that's what he wanted to do. Me and Caroline Grace, and then one of our minis, Clara, we do agility. I have no desire to do the bite work type of stuff. And he decided he wanted to do that. So that's where we are right now.
Can you talk about your journey with figuring out what lines worked for you and what didn't, and how that journey was studying the pedigree, and what did you import from Germany and all that sort of stuff?
When we started learning a lot about pedigrees, but again, I want the pedigree there, but I definitely want the genetics in the dog. So the first big step we took in that direction was buying Drake. He was already the 2023 Czech Republic national champion as a pretty dog, which again, over there, you do all the pretty dog stuff and you do the working stuff. Here, you're either a working dog or a pretty dog. So typically, I'm sure there's some that can go both ways, but typically that's how it is. So I found him and was very impressed by everything about him. Wasn't the understanding between me and a lady that only speaks Czech. Sometimes the messages, even though they were being translated, took quite a few times to read to understand, and I'm sure she was the same way, because this word over here and it needed to be over there, and like, what does that mean? So we got that done, picked him up in Atlanta, brought him home, and I'd seen a lot of videos of him, and he did really well. Brought him here, take him out to work him, and 3 minutes and he quit. Like, he's just done. And I was talking to my wife about it, and please understand, she's the smart one, okay? So I'm talking to her about it, and we're going to eat dinner one night, and she's like, well, what's the temperature over there? I don't know. I live here. So she looked it up. That day, it was 97 degrees here. It was 61 there. So the change in temperature was so drastic for him, like he couldn't continue. He was done. He was drained. So it's been, it was a lot of adjusting to him getting used to the temperature. Who was after him? Zumba? Yeah. And so then I had people that said, that's a really nice dog, but you really need a complete working line female to breed him to. Which all of our dogs are working lines, but they're like, you need a complete working line to breed him to. Okay. So I went and found one, and we got her. And then found Liberty at the Blackmore Kennels in Germany and purchased her. So we have some really, like, I think all of them, every one of them have everybody in their pedigree has IGP titles. Most of them are IGP 3s and FH2. Lots of them have a Korong. So it's just, we have some puppies out of Drake and Zumba now that I love them. They'll eat you alive. I love them. So, and I'll just be honest with you, nobody's seen them but us, and I don't think nobody's going to until it's time for them to hit the field. So I really like them.
So talk about IGP in itself. Because there's different sports out there, but what about IGP has gotten you excited and driven you to compete? And can you talk a little bit about IGP and what that entails?
IGP, for an IGP 1, 2, and 3, you show in obedience, tracking, and protection. At each one, each of the 3 is a little harder at the next level. They also have OB 1, 2, and 3, which is just the obedience, which is changed now and it's called something else. IGP used to be called Schutzen. Now they just changed a lot of the titles from OB1 to, I think it's UPR1. They've changed a lot of them. But you can do each one individually, the tracking. You can do it individually, or you can do it as an IGP, which you do all 3 of them the same day. And then on top of the tracking, of the IGP tracking, you have FH1 and FH2, which, is more advanced. Everything is just a little more advanced. Each of the obedience is a sequence of a certain way that you do it. I try not to train to the sequence because I want the dog to be obedient to what I'm asking you to do. Not just, that we go 10 paces and do a flip turn and come back. I don't want that to be your thing, because after we get this, then we got to change it. So I just want you to know to be obedient under all the circumstances. And IGP instead of anything else is because that's what our son started doing. Like, honestly, the more research of it, like PSA is so cool because it's a little different level, probably a little more difficult. I honestly haven't had time to look into it as in depth as I would like to, but PSA is really, really awesome also. And my wife does, like she said, she does the agility, and I'm not allowed to go to the agility training for the same reason she's not allowed, because the dog pays me more attention than it does her. So, especially Caroline Grace, probably not the Clara, but Caroline Grace does. And all of it's just fun. It's fun. It's exciting to be able to go do it and to have an animal that you're in tune with, whether it's IGP, agility, PSA. I don't even care if it was the confirmation stuff. To have an animal that you're that in tune with, that's a high. Mm-hmm. That's just an experience that it's not a whole lot of things better besides being in love and having a wonderful wife.
Yeah.
I think also with the IGP stuff, that's managed by FCI. Is that managed by? Mm-hmm. So they have not changed. If you look at their standards, they have been the same from day one to now. However long that is, I don't have those facts. And I know that people are going to get really upset when I say this. But AKC doesn't have those same standards. What we see, if you look at AKC history from their breeds until now, they've changed. And they've changed based on who's pretty. Again, I'm probably going to say some things that's going to make people mad, but Schnauzers are not supposed to be pretty dogs. They're not. We have, and I don't keep, a lot of our Schnauzers are not kept. I groom all of them except for 3. Yes, currently except for 3. They're not breed standard groomed. I don't like it. I like them to have the long, flowy, fluffy coat. I like it because it looks pretty when they're running the agility course. And that's, in AKC, that's what you want. You want them to get that attention. But they have changed the standard from what the original Schnauzer was supposed to look like. The original Schnauzer is supposed to have a hard, wiry coat. They are not supposed to have long, soft coats. There shouldn't ever be a soft-coated Schnauzer. Ever. They shouldn't exist. But they do. And we love them, and they're great, and they're pretty. But it changes based on who wins at the big shows. If Monty has won at the Westminster, the breed is going to start going towards what he looks like. And it has done that consistently with every breed, not just the giant Schnauzers, but with every breed. Whereas FCI, if you look at our male dog Drake, he has what should be the characteristics of the giant Schnauzer. He's got that coat, he's got that stance, he's got all of that because their standards never changed. So their breeding never changed. You didn't mix anything in to get that softer coat. So when you show in conformation in FCI versus another organization, you're going to get more uniform look in the FCI than you will in another organization.
Absolutely. One thing I don't understand about AKC or FCI is we've had the ability to do DNA for decades, but they don't require that puppies, that you prove who the puppies came from. Like when I was in the horse industry, all your foals were DNA'd. They had to match mom and dad.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So why don't we do that in the dogs?
Wow.
Like our dogs from overseas, they have to be DNA'd
Before AKC will register.
before AKC will register them. So why don't dogs born here have to be DNA'd? Why don't you compare that to the puppies to make sure the puppies are by mom and dad, who you say is mom and dad?
Yeah.
We have frozen semen
Uh-huh.
from 20, 30 years ago that we can use, but you need to prove that it's from that dog, to me. And we're just now getting into, we're breeding one female to a dog in Germany. To a dog in Italy. And so this is our first time to do the frozen semen.
Right.
He has to do the DNA.
Uh-huh.
But that I know they're not going to compare that DNA to the puppies.
Right.
So, because like Drake, Zumba Liberty, they all have DNA on file, but we didn't have to prove who the puppies are out of. That's crazy. When you have the ability to do it, why don't you do it? Doesn't make sense to me.
No, I agree with you. And coming from the bull breed world, especially the companion bull breed world, there's a lot of effery going on, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I would be more than happy for AKC to do that, because if not, I'm just thinking for myself, if you don't do that and I was that type of person, why wouldn't I register all my dogs out of Drake and Zumba? Zumba's the best female we have.
Right.
Why wouldn't I just register them all out of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to not be able to do that. No matter what. You should have to prove that that's dad
Mm-hmm.
and that's mom.
I agree.
And then you're done. You can't fake that. We go through doing the chips to prove that it's that dog earning the title.
Mm-hmm.
But that dog earned the title, but I actually have the puppies out of another female, but I register them under the dog with the title.
Yeah.
You care about the dog earning a title, the right dog earning the title. You need to care about the right dog being bred. And don't get me wrong, I'm not even saying that's happening. I don't personally know of it happening. What I'm saying is that should not even be a possibility.
Right. Like you said, coming from the horse world, it was just industry standard.
Right.
And it makes sense.
And that was 30 years ago that we were doing it in AQHA. So,
do you guys dual register with the FCI and the AKC, or
we haven't?
Mm-hmm.
We can, but we haven't, because it's expensive to fly one over there to go do something.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I would love to have to do it at some point, because I need to go prove that this dog's the best one in the world.
Yeah.
I would love to do it at some point, but we're not there yet.
Right. Right. It makes sense only. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I forget that you do have to jump through some more hoops. It's not like here.
Right.
Well, so a lot of our dogs can't go over there because their tails are docked and their ears are docked. That is illegal.
That's right.
Over there. It's illegal to even have a dog with their tails and ears docked over there.
Right.
So we have Drake, who is the 2023 Pretty Dog Champion of the Czech Republic. Now AKC would not look twice at him
because
he is not American Pretty Dog.
Yeah.
He's got his ears and he's got his tail.
Yeah.
And that is the breed standard here.
And
it's for them to have ears docked and tails, ears cropped and tail docked.
Yeah, and you can't do it over there. Now on the litter we just had, Zumba's puppies, they have their tails and ears. We didn't crop them or dock them. We have one of Carolina Grace and one of Drake's puppies, and her name is Cruella, and we have her. She still has her ears, but we did dock her tail.
So what's your preference? Do you have one?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really have a preference. I kind of like them with their ears floppy as long as I can tape them so they grow properly. But that's just because I don't want to have to deal with posting them. I'm just going to be honest. So our salt and pepper male, he has one ear. When I tell you that, I just cannot stress enough that this dog about put me in a mental institution.
Mm.
He was horrible. I mean, he's great now. He's great, and I love him to death. And Cole has done a phenomenal job, but that dog was awful. And we cropped his ears. I mean, when you're a vet who has been a vet for like 50 years, it's like I have never seen a more strong-willed dog than this dog ever. That says a lot. But we cropped his ears, and he ended up tearing them back open. So we had to take him, and they had to be redone. And when he come home, I was like, you're going to have to give me something. So he was on tranquilizers for 3 weeks. because he couldn't move. And he still has one ear. He can hold it up when he really wants to, but for the most part, it just kind of lays down a little bit on his head. And his ears are not pretty. They're not pretty ears.
Right.
I'm just going to be honest, because they're not, he had to redo them. So they're more of a pit bull style ear
Right.
than the giant schnauzer ear.
Battle.
Not Barnett's fault.
Yeah.
It's Copper's fault. But it makes Copper look really mean. I'll say that. But then we have his daughter, Coda. She hated her ears being posted. And for whatever reason, she has one ear that she can do the same thing to. She can hold it up, but if she's lazy, it's going to flop on the side of her head. And I'm just like, I just rather not deal with it if I don't have to. It's just easier for me.
For me, in the beginning, I liked the cropped ears, dark tail, and absolutely hated the tail when we got Drake, because for many years, and I hadn't had a dog with a tail. So I can't tell you how many times I caught his tail and stuff. Now I'm pretty good at it. So that was my preference. But the ears and having a tail has absolutely grown on me. And as for me, I don't plan on cutting another tail or cropping another ear.
Well, that, and we did our research on the tails. And having the tail increases their balance and their body awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the tails are there. I'm not sure that cropping their ears has any adverse effects, other than, I'm just going to be honest, I don't want to tape them every other day. Other than that, I wouldn't say. We have ones with cropped ears and ones with floppy ears, and none of them have any problems with ear infections or anything like that.
I've kind of turned it into a little bit of a business, because you do the board and train. Is it picking up? Yeah. How's that been with also having working dogs of your own?
We sometimes it's hectic because there's a lot of dogs to work, and we both have jobs, so sometimes it's tough. It is, but it's fun. Sometimes not so much fun for my wife, because she says she does the
I do the cleaning and the grooming and the bathing, and when you have to groom 16 dogs, it gets a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. So.
See, I couldn't even groom myself. That's why I shave my head, so I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
I'll make them look like Dobermans.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. That's what I would do. So talk about like the breeding process. How has that been with you guys, and what have you learned with the Schnauzers? Has there been anything that has surprised you, or
You handle that.
Not really. You have some great mamas. You have great mamas in different ways. Like Caroline Grace was, my wife said, not a good mama.
She was awful.
I think she was good because she was attentive to her puppies. But if it was just one of them hollering, she'd raise up and look at it. If it was two, she'd be there. But she didn't stay with them 24/7. She wasn't the hovering mama. And she was more free because she does live in a house, so she was more free. Typically the others, when they have them, they're confined because they don't live in the house. They live in the kennel. So they're more confined. They can't really go anywhere.
I think you should clarify, like, when we say live in the kennel, so our downstairs is a kennel. It's not like we don't have them outside in kennels and chain. No,
they live better than we do.
They live in the house with air conditioning and heat, and there's a TV down there. I do have to order another Amazon stick for it, but it's down there. And like,
See what I mean?
because all of the bedrooms and the downstairs have a TV in them, and they have TV playing during the day, and then songs I put on at night for them so they can go to sleep. And so it's not.
Sometimes
We're not outside.
Sometimes they're not allowed to be dogs. See what I mean? But it's it does help with the puppies though, like having the stuff playing because they get used to all the sounds on the TV, so that they're more socialized, and we're not really having to do a lot. Actually, every litter we had last year, they ain't none of them puppies scared of nothing. They no sound, no nothing. I think a lot of it is because of that stuff. Lots of times she plays cartoons, but cartoons are pretty violent nowadays. And
I don't think Bluey is violent.
So they hear all the sounds, the loud stuff, and everything. So I do think it's good for them, at least as puppies. I do. As adults, I think they'd be more like me, and they'd welcome the peace and quiet.
Well, I think when Carolina Grace had her litter, her breeder reached out to me, and she was like, every time you go in there, sing a song. Sing the same song every time. Every time you feed them, every time. So I did. And now that's how I call all the litters. The same song. So I don't have to holler. I just sing, and they all come running like a big gigantic posse. And so I've done that with all of them, and that works. We also, I handled the puppies every single day. From the time they are born, from the day they are born, I handle them every single day. And there are breeders that don't do that. I know breeders that don't do that. There's nothing wrong with them. Great breeders, great dogs, but it's a different dog. We have dogs from breeders that don't handle them every day. And when I say handle them, like I'm carrying them around the house and all of that kind of thing. And that develops great. Both breeding types develop good puppies, but you've got one, if they're handled more, they're more family oriented, they want to be with you, they want to be loved on. And then you have the other one that, well, maybe I want to be loved on, but let's go play instead type of thing. So it really kind of depends on what you want. But I've not been allowed to handle Zumba's puppies as much because he wants them to work and not be spoiled. So I haven't been allowed to handle her puppies as much. But
I bet you $100 she's handled them a lot. I'm not here all the time.
Now, the one we kept out of Carolina Grace's litter, she was the smallest, and I bottle fed her some, so I got attached to her, and so she stayed, and she was held a lot. She was put in the stroller and all that kind of stuff. So she's rotten.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff. So just a couple more questions. So you got your program, you compete, you want a certain style of dog. So when you breed and you have a keeper, what is that? What do you want that dog to grow up into? Not just in its temperament, its overall personality, but the structure, including the height and the weight. What constitutes a quality dog in your eyes, and what are you trying to breed towards on a consistent basis?
I want a Schnauzer that, of course, has proper structure. Otherwise, you're going to deal with a lot of injuries, especially doing a sport like IGP or agility. So proper structure, and to be able to have the bone mass and the, of course, muscle to do it. One thing that we've definitely found is the dogs from Germany are so much stronger than the Giants here. Pound for pound, twice as strong. The first time I took a bite from Drake, he took me to the ground, like just yanked one time and just jerked me to the ground, because that wasn't what I was expecting. The guy at club's like, man, I can't believe how strong that dog is. He's been doing it for 30, 40 years. He said, that's the strongest dog I've ever took a bite from. Like, that's the dog sneezing. Sorry. So I want that, and I want to reproduce dogs like Drake and Zumba. That's because that's what the sport is. Now, we didn't really get into the sport until Caroline Grace was already doing agility, because she is the most bite dog that we have. She will absolutely get after you. But my wife's already has her doing agility, so.
But I also think that's a double-sided coin. So we have dogs here that are more apt to do the bite work and the protection and the sport work. And it, again, here's where I have an issue with the words that are used in this world. Very much so. We have dogs that everyone wants to say are working dogs. No, they're not. They don't do a job at all.
They do a sport.
They do a sport, and a sport dog and a working dog are not the same dog. We have dogs that, like our salt and pepper, or I'm sorry, our pepper salts, they're more prone to the service dog work. Like our pepper salt female, all of her puppies, except for the one that we kept, are service dogs. We have Carolina Grace, who she could be a service dog. She has that temperament. She has that type. So it's going to depend on, sometimes we match the personalities because we don't need them to all be sport dogs. He does not have time, and I'm not going to train him in sport work, and he doesn't have time to train that many. So no, we don't need them all to be sport dogs.
If she would win the lottery, I would have time.
We do need them to have the mentality of a service dog. When I take you in public, you need to disappear, basically. If I tell you to down, I should be able to walk anywhere in the world, and you stay there until I tell you to come find me. And, they need to have the working dog mentality, not the sport dog mentality. So I think that's
Yeah, there was a discussion I saw a few weeks ago on one of the Schnauzer pages talking about working dog versus other breeding, what constitutes a working dog. And myself, I think there's 3 lines. I think there's working lines where they really do jobs. I think there's a sport line, and then there's a show line. That's my opinion. Honestly, nobody's really asking for my opinion. But that's how I see it. Because like these, and I'm not saying that some of the sport dogs can't transition into the working dog. They can. But that's not what they do for a living. What they do is the sport. So working dogs to me are police dogs. Yeah, they do the same thing that you do in sport. They do it for real. They ain't getting judged on it. They got to do it for real. The service dogs of all areas, those are true working dogs. Rescue dogs. What else are there?
There was all kinds, but I think that is where, and you know, we're in the giant schnauzer world, and I'm sure it's probably this way in the majority of the dog world. So many people get caught up in titles. If your dog doesn't have this many titles, you shouldn't breed. If your dog doesn't have this many titles, you shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do this. Some of the best dogs in the world will never hold a title to their name. They're not, some of the best dogs in the world are in our military and they will never enter a show in their life.
Right.
But they have more skill than your dog will ever even hope to have. So I don't necessarily think that having a certificate is what you need to ensure that your breed is bred the right way. But you have a lot of people, at least in this world, maybe it's not that way in other breeds, I don't know. But in this breed, it most definitely is. There's a lot of opinionated people that if you do not have certain titles, not just this many titles, you have to have certain ones. And, well, I mean, okay, but you can't take your dog in public and do stuff with it, and I can. So there's that.
You know, that's the problem in all higher drive dogs. You get so many people that either don't have jobs and think everybody should go around the country and spend a bunch of money and title their dogs, and they have no concept of money and time, or I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get where these people's mindsets come from. But yeah, no, it's the same in a lot of breeds like that.
But you know, no matter how high of a drive your dog has, you have to be, even for the sport, you have to be able to control it.
Yes.
So your dog with the highest of drives, you should still be able to take to Walmart.
I agree. 100%. Yeah.
So many of them aren't that way. They're off. They're about crazy unless they're doing the sport.
So my wife working at a vet, she would see all things, and one of the things is there was one of the clients was a canine police officer, and one of her retired dogs would have to come in the back door with the muzzle, would only allow one person in the room at a time. I mean, it was like, and couldn't, no dogs around. I mean, you know what I mean? And that's a lifelong situation for this lady that has, this is her profession, and that's the dog that she got, and she's doing what she has to do. But 99.9% of the world is not going to want a dog like that. That's a liability waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, you should get a Malinois that's pretty good at sport, but could maintain and walk around a Walmart and just be fine, right? That's the kind of dog that you really want. You don't want this dog that's literally going to want to rip your hand off or try to kill you.
Because, like, most of our puppies, chances are going to go to pet homes. Mm-hmm. Just because 90% of people that own dogs, they're pet dogs.
Yeah.
So the majority of them are going to go to pet homes. So they have to have that temperament. Mom and dad both have to have that temperament. But we want to turn it up a notch with them for them to go do stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to try to pick the best puppy out of this that I think will go do that. Now, Am I going to be right? I don't know. Maybe. Because they change so much. Picking from the litter of coppers that we kept, she's 9 months old now. And in the last 2 weeks, I changed 3 times. There was only 4 puppies. I changed 3 times.
Right.
Because this week, this one I think is the best. Next week, oh my gosh, that one is. And I'm doing the same test every week. And they change that much. Fine, I'm going to take that one. Now, did I make the best decision? I don't know.
Yeah.
She's 9 months old, and she just went and got her CGC A, U, and she's a star puppy. So, she's at least smart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's half the battle, I'm sure. Yeah. So just a couple more. I'm sorry.
You're
Fun.
Pepper and salt. What the genetics? Is it any different?
Worlds.
What's that?
Worlds of difference.
Worlds of difference. Yeah.
Yes. Even though they're the same breed, they're completely different. And there's not very many pepper and salts that have the drive to go do this job, to do this sport. There's only been, I think only 2 have ever reached an IGP3. One is in Turkey. I've seen video of him. He's a phenomenal dog. The other one, I haven't seen anything on him. Not sure how old he is. The other one in Turkey is like 10 years old. There's a couple that have reached, in the world, an IGP2. There's only 1 or 2 that have reached a 2 in the United States. No pepper salt has reached a 3. Currently, Copper is the only living pepper salt that has an IGP title that we know of, that we can find. So we are breeding. I said earlier about breeding to one in Italy. He's an IGP2, and he is a pretty boy champion also. So he's got it all. Hopefully the puppies have it all. But the genetics are so different. The drives are so different. You find some of those genetics in dogs with no pedigree. Like our female has the genetics. She has absolutely no pedigree to do it, but she has the genetics. So hopefully she will produce her genetics. With Copper, the puppy that we have, the other 3 are in training. She had 4 puppies. The other 3 are in training to be service dogs. So they're all laid back, cool, calm, collected. Nothing bothers them. They ain't scared of nothing, all that. She's the same way. She does her obedience great. The bite, like the black puppies out of Drake will eat your hand off if you let them. They will. The pepper salt puppies, they don't have that in their backgrounds. So it's more effort to get them to do it. We would like to bring some of that back in it over here. Like I said, there's not very many male pepper salts in the world with an IGP title at all. And even Dream, the one we're breeding to, he's 10. He's one of the last that got it. So the genetics are just so different. And people talk about how are you going to get the genetics in there? Well, you got to find the right dogs that are already pepper salt. because it's extremely frowned upon to breed cross colors, to breed the blacks, because they're pure blacks. Even in the associations in the WRSF, which is the association that we're in to do IGP, you have to have 5 generations pure in your color to register it there. So you can't cross them and do anything. The genetics are just so much weaker overall, but there are some that have it. You just have to find the ones that have it. The drive, most of your black dogs that we have anyway, they all have the drive. They all have the prey drive, food drive. They will love to bite you.
But I think it's important that people understand it's not just the biting thing. So I kind of compare it as the black dogs will bite, the pepper salts will track. They're far better trackers than the black dogs. So essentially, it'd be like asking a fish to climb a tree. They're not going to be able to climb the tree, but they can swim really far. So if you want a tracking dog, if you want a search dog, the pepper salts are where it is currently. Like they can track like nothing I've ever seen. The black dogs tend to get a little bit more bored with that. It's not quite as high intensity, and they are just like, whatever, I'm done now. So
now that is our experience with the pepper salts, because all the pepper salts that we have are trackers. Coda's 9 months old. I took her tracking 2 or 3 times, and she's great. Like the first time we tracked, she had already been doing it. And I know she hadn't, because she ain't never lived nowhere but here. So my wife tracked with her mom. Copper's a great tracking dog. So, and I actually hadn't thought about what she just said. The black dogs kind of get bored with that. They'd rather go do the obedience, the high intensity stuff, go do the bite work. They'd rather go do that because that's more intense, more fun for them.
You know, doing all these interviews with people in programs, what really that I value a lot is when there's a program that has kind of like a similar but dual vision, and I think any successful program does have what you guys got going. Like you do the agility and the tracking stuff, and you're into the IGP, and that's your primary focus, and you're concerned about making sure that these are good family members and all of that, but you also want the dog that's going to be out there being strong on the field and all of that. So I think the duality is so important when you're trying to do this, because you got to have that to be a marketable kennel, and to be marketable, you need that to there is a business aspect to this, you know what I mean? And to keep going and to be able to breed good dogs for the long term, you got to have a little bit of marketability and some income coming in. And I think you have to have that duality in a lot of these types of programs. Otherwise, you're just limiting your niche so tight that I see people just in one day out the next because there's no market for them.
Very true.
Well, because a lot of people, and this is probably a conversation my husband and I have had more than he would prefer, but the majority of people are not looking for a dog that's going to bite. They're looking for the pretty dog. They're looking for the dog that's going to lay on the couch, the dog that's going to snuggle. Now, There's not a dog on our property that I don't trust with me. We have a 3.5-year-old grandson, and as much as I love every single dog here, and do I think they would ever do anything? I don't. There's one dog on this property that I will leave alone with him in a room, and that's Carolina Grace. All of the other dogs, do I trust them? 100%. But not with him. Because he's little, and little kids climb, and little kids do things. And, I think that all of our dogs are made to, we can bring every dog up here from downstairs, up here, if we had the room, and live with us. Not in kennels, like they need to be able to live with us. And that's what people want. We let people come and meet them. And I've told people countless times, if you want to come and meet them, I don't care. You kind of have to do it on a weekend because I work all day, but you can come if you want to. It's loud most of the time. It's not loud right now. All of our dogs are kennel trained. Every single one of them. And I think there's a problem. A lot of people have an issue with that. Dogs shouldn't be kept in a kennel. Okay. But, we have family that come over, and you have a life. And if that dog can't integrate itself into your life somehow, I think that you're going to end up with a lot of puppies that you don't necessarily want to keep because they can't integrate into their life. And a lot of it has to do with how the parents act. Like, if the parents are acting crazy, most people aren't going to want those type of puppies.
So when you got a customer is interested in the sport, whether it's agility tracking or IGP or something on those lines, but they're back and forth on what kind of dog they want to get. You got the popular German Shepherds, the Malinois, the Dutchies, and all that. What would you say to them why you should give the giant Schnauzer a chance if they're thinking about it?
I tell people that the giant Schnauzer, everything that the German Shepherds and Malinois do here, they do over there. They do across the sea. We just don't do it here. So they have to be prepared for people to always doubt you. They're always going to doubt that your dog will ever be able to compete because you're not a German Shepherd. Plus, it's really cool to prove them wrong when they win. But
I would tell them that if you want to stand out, you need a giant. If you want to be like everybody else, then I can tell you who sells Malinois. Now, don't get me wrong, nothing against the Malinois, I like them. But if you want to stand out, I can't tell you how many places we go, people have never seen a giant Schnauzer. So our vet, we're the only giant Schnauzers he has. And he's been in business for 30 plus years, and we're the only ones he's ever had. So if you want to stand out, then you need a giant Schnauzer. Well, now you better make sure they're good, because otherwise you're just gonna stand out because they're a giant Schnauzer.
But at the same time, we'll sit here all day and talk about the good things about the Schnauzers because there's plenty of them. But I think that people need to be aware giants do not mature as fast as a German Shepherd. And so if you're getting an 8-week-old puppy and you're comparing it to your friend who has an 8-week-old puppy and y'all are doing the same thing, but you have a giant and they have a German Shepherd, that German Shepherd is going to excel much faster than your giant Schnauzer. probably by 6 to 8 months. And your giant will get there, and when he gets there, it's going to be good, but you have to put in that time. They're much more stubborn, first of all. They take longer than any breed I've ever known in my life to potty train. It usually clicks somewhere around 8 months. It's not going to be a 2 or 3 week lesson, and you have to be prepared to wait that long. That was part of we had a little bit of struggle when Cole was in school with Copper, because Copper was a very young puppy. Everybody else had German Shepherds and Malinois. He had a giant Schnauzer. And for a while, he was getting frustrated. And it took a long time for him to understand he is bigger than them, but he's not as mature as they are. They take a full 2 years to come into who they're going to be. And you have to be able to take that time. If you want a dog that's going to do something major in 6 months, you don't need a giant Schnauzer. You just don't. You have to be willing to take the time, slow down, because if you try to hurry them, one, you're going to mess up their bones. They're not supposed to run. They're big. I tell everybody they get really long legs the first year, and they're clumsy. And then after that, they start to fill out a little bit, and they get their coordination back. And if you start making them jump and run and do all of that stuff so soon, you're going to mess their legs up and their joints up. So, they have to be in, I don't know. I've never owned a Malinois. I've owned a German Shepherd, but she really wasn't that big of a deal. But, a bored giant is a destructive giant. So you have to be really mindful when you're going to take a shower. Put the dog in the kennel. Unless you're going to put the dog in the shower, put the dog in the kennel. Otherwise, I learned from experience, you're going to have a hole in your wall when you come out of the shower. They're just a dog that you have to be more mindful of, and they're manipulative to the nth degree. And they, if you let them get away with, and I'll tell everybody, full disclosure, I spoil these dogs rotten. And I do not always make them follow the rules, 100%. It's my fault that sometimes they act like heathen children. I get it. But I'm going to tell you what to do. Don't lead by my example, but I'll tell you the right way to do it. The right way is, I tell everybody, if you don't want them to do it at 80 pounds, don't let them do it at 8 pounds. Now, am I going to let them do it at 8 pounds? I 100% am. Am I going to probably get a little frustrated when they jump at me when they're 100 pounds and we both fall back into the wall? Probably. I am.
Then she's going to say, why ain't you fixed that?
But
because you keep letting them do it. So. And
I hold them and I carry them, and but they're going to do what you let them do. And if you let them get away with it once, it will take you 400 times longer to fix it. They're just stubborn, and they just know.
They are, and the trainability of them is phenomenal. But like she said, they're stubborn, and they'll learn quickly how to do it. But then, but I don't want to do it. So then they have to learn the have tos. You don't have the choice. When I say sit, you sit. That's not a choice. That's a have to. So that's where the stubborn comes in on the training side, because like I say, they're extremely smart, and the slow maturity doesn't really hurt that. It's the stubbornness. The slow maturity is in, you can't do the things with them, the running and the jumping that you can with some others, and the potty training, because small bladders, a lot of water, it's coming out. They can't hold it until that matures. So, but the butting heads with you, so to speak, I promise you, if you have a giant, they're going to butt heads with you. Other dogs that we've had here, they learn it. They do it one time. They never challenge you. Like, okay, that's what I do. Okay, got it. I do that for that treat. Got it. I do that 10 times for that treat. Okay, got it. I do that 100 times for that treat. Okay, got it. They're fine with that. The giant be like, I'm not doing it anymore. You ain't give me nothing. I'm not doing it anymore.
So, for example, Carolina Grace, she trains in agility. And so we do it because she loves it and it's good for her. In her jump class, probably not going to win any titles against an Australian Shepherd or anything. And that's fine with me. Perfectly okay
Unless
with
they
that.
fall down.
I mean, maybe if they faint on the course, we might have a chance, but that's about it. But she's fast and she's good at it, and for the breed she is. But it took her trainer a little bit to understand that she's not like other dogs. You've got about 2 times of running the same sequence before you try to get her to do it again. She's just going to stop and look at you like, I've shown you I can do this. I'm not doing it again. You can change it, and that's fine, and I'll go forward. But I'm not going to do this over and over for nothing. She is the most stubborn dog that we have. We have been in the middle of an agility course, and she decided she was done. And she sat down on the end of the teeter, and she wasn't moving. She ran to the end and sat down like, if you want to move my 85-pound honey, go ahead. But I'm not doing it. And so it took her trainer a little while to, she knows when Carolina Grace gets bored. And when she gets bored, she goes around and knocks over the obstacles. She just knocks them over. It's like a toddler. And a lot of ours learn by watching, not necessarily doing it. They will sit there and they're watchers, and which is kind of freaky in a way, actually. But like Carolina Grace, she can watch, and she watches it a couple times. She knows how to do it. Some of them have to do it. It's just it goes back to taking the time to learn how your dog learns and what's going to work and how far you can push them. You push them too far, they're going to lose the will to do it or the want to. And you don't push them enough, then they're going to run all over you. So.
Well, I really appreciate it, guys. I'm glad to be able to do this. It's one of my favorite breeds that I've never owned and only been around just a tiny bit. But every time I've been around them, they're just so impressive to me. So,
when you decide to vacation in Alabama, then you can come by.
Yeah, for sure, and I definitely will. I'll come knock on your door and let me see them doggies.